So in today's video, I'm going to talk about what is an off-grid system, why would someone go off-grid, and how do you go off-grid? So let's start off with what is an off-grid system. An off-grid system is an alternative source of power to our main grid power. So where you've got a power pole out the front and that provides power for your home. So an off-grid system is an independent system that generates power. So it harnesses power, solar power from the sun. That solar power then goes into your batteries. You've got an inverter that uses both solar power and batteries and converts that power into usable electricity for your home. So either 240 volt single phase or 415 volt three phase power to power your home. So as if you're connected to mains power grid. So I'm going to use my favorite analogy to dive a bit deeper into what is an off-grid system. So let's use a water tank as an example. So just a regular water tank that you'd see next to a home. So let's imagine that water tank is an off-grid system, but instead of water, it's electricity. So let's think of the tank as the storage for your home. So the bigger the tank, the more usable energy that you've got stored to power your home when there's no solar coming in. Now let's think of the water coming into the tank as solar power. So the more power that's coming in, the quicker that's going to fill up the tank and the more energy that you've got to use for your home. Now let's think as the inverter as the tap that comes off the tank. So the bigger that tap is, the more power it's going to pull from the tank. Those three elements all need to be balanced to each other. If any of them is out, it can throw the whole system out of whack. So let's use the tank as the first example. So let's imagine we've got a teeny tiny little tank and we've got heaps of solar, heaps of water coming into that tank and there's nowhere to store it. So you've got all this power coming in, but you don't have enough storage. So at night time, you're going to be running out of power. The generator is going to be running a lot. So that's not going to work too well. Now let's think about that on the flip side. So imagine we've got a massive tank, but there's not much solar coming in. So once that tank is empty, you don't have that replenishment coming in to provide power for your loads directly and to top up the tank. So again, that's not going to work too well. And with the inverter, that also needs to be sized correctly as well, because imagine you've got a big inverter that can pull heaps out of the tank, but you don't have enough storage and you don't have enough replenishment coming in from the solar. So you're pulling all this power out, but you're not making enough power and you're not storing enough power either. So again, it throws the whole ecosystem out. So when all of those three elements are balanced to each other, the off-grid system works really well. Now there is a fourth element to that as well, which is a generator. Every off-grid system needs a generator to provide backup power at the times of year where we don't have as much generation, such as winter. So there's not as much solar coming in to top up the tank. And after a few crappy days, the tank gets low and it needs replenishment. So the generator can kick in automatically, top up the tank, and that helps keep the system going. And we want the generator to run, as a general rule of thumb, about 6 to 12 times a year. That's an economical sweet spot. So the generator also serves another really important role as well. So it gives you redundancy for the system. So in the unlikely circumstance something happens and you require a fix on your off-grid system, you can bypass the off-grid system with your generator and provide power to your home whilst the off-grid system gets fixed. So I hope the water tank analogy gives you a good overview on how an off-grid system works. So now let's talk about why would someone go off-grid. So the main reason that someone goes off-grid is the economics of it. So a common scenario for many of our customers is they'll ring up, they've bought a block of land, they're planning to build their dream home and shed, and they've got a cost to connect the power to the block, and it's a high cost. So for example, it could cost 80 grand to get the power connected. They've gone through everything with us or another provider, and it's going to cost 60 grand to get an off-grid system. So they're comparing 80 grand to connect the power or 60 grand for an off-grid system that will power their home. There's really good economics as to why you would go off-grid in this circumstance, because you're going to be 20 grand better off straight up. That's the first reason. But there's also a return on investment aspect to it as well. So an off-grid system will typically pay for itself in around 10 years. and it will last, a good system will last a good 15 years or so. So every dollar of that $60,000 is going to come back to you pretty slowly. It's a boomerang, but it's going to come back to you in around 10 years. So you get every dollar of that back. Whereas with that 80 grand to connect the grid, you never get a cent of that back. So there's no return on investment for connecting the power in that circumstance. So now let's talk about how someone would go off-grid. My recommendation is to find a business that specializes in off-grid. You know, someone that's got a reputation, someone that's done plenty of off-grid before. The off-grid's the flavor of the month at the moment, and you don't want to be a guinea pig for someone's first system or first few systems. So find someone that knows what they're doing. So the first thing that they're going to do is they're going to calculate a load profile. Now, what this load profile does is it documents all of the appliances in your home. So what we want to do when we're doing this is we're not expecting that you're going to run all of them at the one time, but it's a really important process to document everything that's going to be in your home. And from the load profile, what we're going to do is identify two critical numbers. There's the peak load. Now that's the combination of power of all the appliances if they're turned on at the one time. That's the peak load. The other important number is your average kilowatt hours per day. So how much power do we anticipate that you're going to use per day? That number can only be identified through interpreting the load profile, which comes from asking lots of questions on how you're going to use that load profile. You could have 5 different families with the same load profile, and they could use quite a different amount of power. You know, one family might use the wood heater exclusively for heating during winter, and the ducted air conditioning just for air conditioning in the summer. And another family might actually not even bother using the wood heater, or they might only use it occasionally. So they're heating primarily with the ducted system. So that's going to make a big difference to their average consumption per day. And especially as we compare the usage per day in winter as to summer, that can make a bit of a difference as to how we size the system. So we've done a load profile, we've identified the peak load, and we've identified the average kilowatt hours per day. So I'm going to give you an example of a real system that I'm working on at the moment. The customers are going to use about 25 kilowatt hours per day, and their peak load is 19.12 kilowatt. That's the total power that they could pull. So I've worked out for them that they're going to need a 15 kVA inverter. That's going to give them enough power to run their ducted air conditioning, their electric cooking, and the normal appliances in their home. With 25 kilowatt hours of daily usage, we need at least that much usable power from the batteries. So I've recommended a 30 kilowatt hour battery bank. So we can use 90% of the battery's capacity. So we've got 27 kilowatt hours of usable power. So that's more than the 25 kilowatt hours anticipated daily usage. And then with the solar, I've recommended 13.2 kilowatt of solar. Now that's going to produce 26.1 kilowatt hours of power per day on average at the worst time of year. So in June, it's going to produce 26.1 kilowatt hours per day. And now that's demonstrating that even at the worst time of year, on average, that solar is going to produce enough power for his home. So that gives you an overview how we build a load profile, what the information we're looking for in that load profile, how we interpret it, and then how we'll recommend you a system and demonstrate how it's going to work for you. So I hope in this video that you've got something out of it. You know, what is an off-grid system? Why would you go off-grid? How would you go off-grid? So keep an eye out on our channel. There's plenty of good videos on there already, and there's plenty more to come.